This direction is fall through creepy Craigslist order service with one sons by Nathan Spooks, Luck, and Saswap Dream. The link to the video will be in the description below. Go and check them out. So let's get into this vaccine in 3, 2, 1.
I recently got my first car and moved
Yeah.
outside of the city. For years, I had rode my bike just about everywhere, but after I got my car, I really stopped using it.
Wow.
It was a very nice bike, so I decided to sell it on Craigslist and see what I could get for it. The bike was up for a few days before I got any responses. Finally, I got one. A man named John said he was very interested and wanted to buy it.
Wow.
I gave him my address and told him to come by that evening. When the time came, I got the bike and went out to my driveway. A short time later, I saw a van come around the corner towards my house. It was a kind of old-looking van, and it parked right in front of my house. A man got out and introduced himself to me. He wore a cap and his clothes were sort of dirty. He told me he was John, and then he started looking at the bike. He examined it for a couple of minutes, and then felt one of the tires. He said the tire seemed low, and asked if I could get my pump from the garage. In my opinion, the tire was just fine, and I was sort of afraid he would try to steal the bike if I walked away, so I told him I didn't have a pump. The man then asked if we could go into my garage, because it looked like it was going to rain. It was cloudy, but I didn't really think it was going to rain, and overall the man was really sketching me out. I told him no, and the man then just simply turned around and walked back to his car. I brought the bike back up my driveway. I waited for the man to leave, but he just seemed to be sitting there in his car. I went behind my house to put the bike away and then went inside. It took about 30 minutes for the van to drive away. I kept an eye on him the whole time because the man had just come across as a little suspicious to me.
What are these
The situation made me a little more skeptical about Craigslist because I really hadn't used it before and I had heard lots of bad things, but I figured it was all just stories. The next day when I woke up, I walked out my front door like I did every day to water several of my plants that I had out there. When I opened the door, I noticed the van was parked in front of my house again.
What?
As soon as I seemed to notice it, it violently pulled out onto the street and drove away, making a screeching noise as it did. I was left pretty shocked. I didn't know what they were doing there or if they were planning something bad, but I'm not aware of them returning since. This was all just a few weeks ago, and I've decided to just keep the bike.
Wow. Whoa. Wow. That tells you something about that. You can't trust what's on Craigslist, because some guy on there could be creepy or suspicious, So wait.
A couple of years ago, I was looking to buy a used car on Craigslist. I didn't have a whole lot of money, so I knew the options that I was looking at were most likely a beater. I didn't really care though. As long as the car ran well and was reliable, I would be happy with it. I was a 22-year-old guy and in college at the time, and my previous car, which was also a beater, had finally broken down. After browsing for several days and borrowing one of my parents' cars in the meantime, I found an ad for something on Craigslist that seemed pretty good. It was a 2004 Chevy Impala, selling for a pretty cheap price, and according to the listing, it ran great. It looked slightly dirty in the picture, but I thought it was worth looking at, so I contacted the seller and asked them if I could take a look. The seller said his name was Dave, and replied that sure I could come by later at about 6. He then asked if that worked for me. I said it did, and then he sent me the address. When the time came, I put the address into my phone and drove to the location. It was roughly
Oh,
30 minutes away from my house. The area looked sort of rough, and the address was at the end of a street.
what?
I saw a
What?
house with a driveway that was completely empty, and I texted Dave that I was there, but I didn't see the car. He replied to me that the car
Okay.
was in the back and told me to come around. This seemed a little odd, but I told myself
Yeah,
to
you
man
said
up
it
and go
odd.
look at it. I got out of the car and walked into the front yard of the house. The grass was rather long and overgrown, and it had several trees with branches that had fallen over all over the place in the yard. When I got around the house to the back, I saw a man with grayish hair and a t-shirt who waved at me. I
What?
could see the car was there in the backyard up against an old shed, and after looking at it in person, it looked like it hadn't been driven in years.
What the?
The
In
man
years?
told me I
Oh,
was in luck because he was thinking of dropping the price. He then waved me over to the car. He told me to get in and see how it felt for me to sit inside of it, so I walked over to the car and noticed that there were blankets covering the back windows. They were draped over them from the inside, but were sticking out at the tops of the windows a little bit. I had a bad feeling, and as I got towards the
what?
driver's door, I was sure I could sense someone moving in the back seat of the car. At that point, I backed away. I could see some surprise in Dave's eyes as he looked at me. I quickly made up an excuse for backing away and said Dave I needed to ask him how many miles were on the car again before I forgot. He looked up and paused for a second before saying it had just over 100,000 miles.
One of
As he
those
said this,
months.
I
Wow.
slowly walked farther away from
That's
both
a lot.
Dave and the car. Once I reached a distance I was confident in, I ran away all the way back to my car. I drove home after that. I still believe to this day that was some sort of setup. I don't know for sure, but I did end up getting a car, just not from Craigslist.
Wow. Yeah, don't. The lesson of the story is don't go to Craigslist for a car. Yeah, because you never know what kind of people that are. Yeah, it could be creepy, suspicious, or scary tweet.
Several months ago, I dropped my phone on the ground and broke it. It was broken to the point that I couldn't even use it, and the phone seemed to be damaged beyond repair.
What? Oh,
My
that's not
phone
good.
was my main communication, and I used it a lot for my work, so I knew I
Oh,
needed a new one immediately. I decided to turn to Craigslist to see if there was any good deals.
oh no.
I figured it would be really fast and possibly getting one the same day. I looked around on my laptop for no longer than 5 minutes before finding something that looked promising to me. It was the same model of phone that I had before, and the price was very reasonable. It was said to be used, but in good working condition and unlocked as well. My friend loaned me their phone for the day so I could text the seller. I contacted them and asked them how soon I could buy it. It took them a little while to respond though, and they said they were at work and worked until 8 p.m., so the earliest I could come by was 9. I was somewhat disappointed, but I
Yeah,
figured it was still faster than buying one online and a
yeah,
lot cheaper than getting one from a store, so I agreed.
yeah.
At about 8:30, I got another text, which was an address and the person saying, "Stop by now." I got in my car right away and drove to the location, which was about 15 minutes away. It was in a neighborhood that had a lot of relatively small houses that were close to each other. The street seemed pretty quiet, and I matched the address on the text to the one on the street. I parked my car on the side of the road and walked up to the front step. I waited for a response, but I wasn't getting one.
What the?
Then I heard movement right inside the front door and saw that the door was being opened. I expected someone to be there and invite me in, but instead the door just opened about a foot, and then I heard someone walk away. I stood there for a second, not sure if it was an invitation to come in or what. I called out hello, but didn't get a response.
No
I
response.
continued to stand there until I saw the door swing open even more. At that point, I decided to walk inside. As I stepped in, I heard the wooden floors creaking at my feet. The house was pretty old and mostly dark, besides a few small lamps that were on and some kitchen lights in the back. The door opened to a living room with a couch and a couple chairs, but was mostly pretty empty. Then I saw a staircase and a hallway in the middle. I took another step in and said, "I'm here to buy the phone." Again, no response. Then I noticed from behind the wall of the kitchen, out into the hallway, a man come about halfway out. He had a huge smile on his face, so
This
big
is
that I
small.
could see all of his teeth, and his eyes were wide open. He looked insane.
It's, it,
He held
it's
out his
creepy.
hand with the phone in it, but didn't say anything. He took his other hand and slowly pointed it at me, and then waved me over, all while having the same creepy smile on his face the
Creep,
entire time.
creepy small. Oh no.
I
Then
felt
they go.
nothing but scared, and turned and ran out of the house all the way back to my car.
Scary for. Whoa. Once again. Oh. Yeah, it was. Wow. A creepy small. Soapy. Wow. It is good by whenever I or the what you call. Yeah. Wow.
A while back, I got a new car and decided to sell my old one on Craigslist. I had used Craigslist many times before to buy things as well as sell, and I had had good experiences with it. It was my old Jeep that I was selling, and I figured it wouldn't be too hard to sell because it ran well and didn't really have any problems. I put up the listing at a price that was maybe a little too high though, because I didn't really get any interest in it other than a few people that were trying to lowball me.
Lobo.
Finally, I got some interest from someone. We arranged a time for them to come and look at it. I decided to make the meeting place a local grocery store. The grocery store was by my house and had a really large parking lot that was usually always open at the back.
Good.
When the time came, we both met there, and I saw a man get out of an old-looking car and come over to me. He shook my hand and said his name was George. He seemed to be a pretty average-looking guy. I told him a few things about the car, and he started to look at it. He didn't really seem all that interested in it, though. He then asked me to take it for a test drive. I told him sure, but I would go along with him. I got in the passenger side, and he got in the driver's seat. He pulled out of the grocery store parking lot and drove down the road. It was a mainly residential area with some wild land as well, so the roads weren't too busy. He drove up north a little while, and then suddenly turned left on a road that appeared to be dirt. I didn't know why exactly he was turning here, and at this point it seemed a little strange, so I asked the man if he knew where he was going. He didn't reply to me though. I got a little bit concerned, but the man then pulled the car over to the side of the dirt road that we were on. It was surrounded by a field to the left and a woods to the right. The man then got out and slowly walked into the woods. I called after him, but it only seemed to make him go faster. I was pretty alarmed with what I was seeing.
What the?
Why was the man going into the woods?
Yeah, why?
I was a little concerned, so I shut the doors and locked it. I waited there for a while and called his number on his phone, but the call was immediately declined. I was pretty creeped out, so I decided to call the police and tell them the situation. I then drove back to the grocery store parking lot, which was only a couple of minutes away. When I got there, the man's car was gone. I was really surprised by what happened, and to this day, I really don't know how to explain it.
Wow, that was. Oh, wow. That was a lot. Oh, wow. That was 4 true creepy Craigslist order service with one songs by Not Time Spooks. The link to the video will be in the description below. Go and check them out. And drop a like if you like, and comment down below if you want to see more series reaction like this one. and subscribe if you're new and click the bell so be notified when I upload. No matter. Bye.